Changing gears now, and Smart Money this week featured Colin Biggers and Paisley. It's a mid-tier legal firm that specialises in contract law for major apartment sales, and like most legal companies, they use a huge amount of paper. But they recently commenced a switch away from paper. They're now using DocuSign software to complete and digitally sign contracts for major apartment sales. It's a move that is saving them up to 250,000 sheets of paper per day every time they carry out a major apartment sale. To find out how they did it, John D met up with Mark Morgan, the managing partner of Colin Biggers and Paisley.
You're here because you've managed to massively reduce your use of paper. Can you tell us why was it that your company used so much paper in the first place?
Oh, we're a law firm. Law firms are nothing but paper manufacturing companies. We have 400 employees. All law firms generate massive contracts, and we're no different to any of the others.
So how much paper did you find yourself actually using?
We found out that we're using approximately 5.8 million pages of documentation a year.
Now, what made you decide to go that digital alternative route? What was the process that led to that?
We're experimenting with it at the moment. It's part of a general efficiency process. We've got clients who are demanding lower costs and higher efficiency, and this is the way to go.
Now, you recently managed to reduce your usage of paper by up to 250,000 pages in a single day. How did you do that?
Yes, we have discovered that was possible. When we launch a sale of 250 apartments, we actually generate 250,000 pages in a single day. When we move to an e-contract process, we're able to eliminate that paper altogether.
Mark, as I understand it, this is how much paper you would use on a single apartment building with 250 units in it. Can you take us through how you used to sell a building with contracts with that amount of paper?
Yes, it's quite remarkable. When we're putting together a contract for a building of this size, we put together a contract this size, approximately 500 pages. It takes about 2 weeks to get the inquiries together from government authorities in order to put this contract together. Once we put the contract together, we then produce 500 copies of this document. Those 500 copies then have to be checked and cross-checked by paralegals for the next 5 weeks to make sure no pages have been left out. We then take all of these copies, all 500 copies, by truck to a sales office, and we then do what we call a launch, a day on which we attempt to sell all 250 apartments in the one day. And
once you did that, I guess you'd also then have to courier all those contracts back out once they'd been double-checked again.
There's more than double handling, there's actually triple handling. We have to take a truck out to the sales office. When the purchasers have signed the 250 contracts, we then have to bring them back by truck to our office to check them all through one by one to make sure that all the pages are still there, they've been completed correctly. And then they're individually all 250 sent by 250 couriers to 250 purchasers. So it's actually triple handling at that point of time.
Well, it sounds incredibly inefficient and takes a lot of time and it's very expensive. How does that same process look when it's paperless, when you're doing it totally digitally just with tablet computers?
Massive difference. The commencement of the project is exactly the same as with a paper contract. We take 2 weeks still to put together a master contract. However, once the master contract is on computer, it's set. We don't have to produce 500 copies. We produce 500 copies at the launch itself. All we need to do is add a single front page to each computer copy, and they get signed. They then are signed by the vendor at the same time. The purchaser has the contract immediately. We have the contract immediately. There's no further handling.
So if you're signing a contract, I'm buying a house off you, I've signed that contract, how quickly will I get that on my iPhone from signing to receiving?
You'll get it within 2 minutes after the vendor signs it, and usually the vendor signs it within 2 minutes after the purchaser has signed it.
So what kind of cost savings are you seeing there? You're obviously reducing paper use quite significantly. I understand that's about 250,000 pages that you're going to save. What kind of money are we looking at there from a savings standpoint?
In relation to a single project of 250 apartments, we would immediately save approximately $85,000 in raw cost.
Now, I guess there's another saving there, I guess, because all of these contracts would have to be stored here in an expensive CBD office, and you have to store them off-site. What kind of cost savings are you looking at overall, do you think?
That's correct. To save 250 contracts, we would need about 50 archive boxes. It would cost us approximately $1,000 a year to store that.
Now, if we look at the company as a whole, I understand this is phase one of your paper reduction push. How well has this gone from the point of view of the rest of the firm? Are you looking to roll this out now across the company?
The other partners are watching this with intense interest, and they're very excited that it's been so successful. A committee has already been formed to see how this can be passed across to other parts of the firm, and we'd be hopeful of turning the firm paperless within the next 4 or 5 years.
If you look at legal companies like yourselves, you've got to store these contracts off-site for a number of years. What's the main efficiency benefit from being able to access those contracts digitally instead of having them off-site on a different location?
Oh, we have to store thousands and thousands of documents in paper form in warehouses. If we need to ever refer to a document, and you only ever have to refer to about 1 in 1,000 if you're very unlucky, it takes days to get hold of it. It costs money to get it. Even when you find the box, you've got to search through it for the piece of paper. If it's digital, you can access that single piece of paper immediately just by ordinary computer searching.
You've proven, I guess, that when it comes to selling apartments and having contracts, you're saving up to 250,000 pages in a single day. If the whole company was to take this approach and go paperless, what kind of savings would you see?
Well, at the moment we're producing about 5.8 million pages of paper each year. That would be the saving.
And would you, in terms of saving then, in terms of, if you look at I looked here at the storage that you have, it's quite significant, the on-site storage here in an expensive CBD location. Would you be able to reduce the size of your office over time if you went fully digital?
If we went fully digital, we'd be able to reduce the size of the office by half and still have the same number of people in the same area that they're working in at the moment.
Mark, for people watching now who might be thinking, well, maybe I'll take my company down the digital road, what advice would you give them?
Well, in terms of efficiency, it's a no-brainer. But as well as that, there are enormous costs. You no longer need photocopiers. You no longer need couriers. The savings are quite substantial as a result of that. And if companies wish to continue competing, they just have to go down this road.
After the break, Budget 2016 brought out some major and unexpected changes to super. When we return, the guys at Money Management take you through the changes and what they'll mean for you.